Welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I am Pierre Cooks. I am the founder for the Black Voice. It is an entity and a project that is dedicated um, to giving a voice to Black experiences. In case you guys don't know anything about the Black Voice, it was kind of birthed out of the idea that everything that is happening in the world at the moment as it pertains to Black lives is happening because Black voices are tired of not being heard. Um, and I wanted to do my part in lending a platform for those voices to be heard. And so we have the project that is the Black Voice. And so what we do is I've talked to about 12 different artists in the South Bend, Michiana area, and they write pieces, whether it's poems, songs, raps, any and all things that they write. I create a dance to it alongside a few other choreographers in the area, and then we create a dance video to that piece, and we release it on the 16th of every month. And we've committed to a full year of this. So this is month 2, and this month's topic is Black joy, self-love, and Black care and within the Black community. I mean, obviously. And so I'm so grateful for all of you guys joining us today. We are joined by the Ezedike, who was the artist and the featured artist for the month. I'll let him give you guys a little bit of background on himself, just a little bit, and then we'll jump to our next featured artist, our next featured guest.
Sounds good. So I go by the name Ezedike. It's my stage name. I moved to Chicago. I'm originally from South Bend, but I moved to Chicago in the middle of last year to sort of pursue my artistic career and start an entertainment company. So that's pretty much what I've been up to for the last year and just sort of working a lot and stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Way to start off strong. And then we've got Miss Bryant.
Yes, hello, good evening. Good to see all of you here. My name is Bryant, and I am a professor of psychology at Indiana University South Bend, the director of the Social Action Project. I am in cahoots with Black Lives Matter, and I'm happy to be working with Pierre on this amazing piece of work. So I look forward to talking with you folks this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be working with you as well. And then we've got Miss Pierson.
Hello, everyone. I bring you greetings from New York City, Brooklyn to be exact. And so I am a licensed clinical social worker, as well as a credentialed pastor, as well as an author, co-author, activist, and mentor. So I do a lot of things, and I'm happy to be here tonight to just share a little bit on mental health in the Black community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pierson. All the way from New York. Oh gosh, we appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it so much. And then we've got Cara, Miss Moore.
Hello. I am Cara Moore. Enough said, just think of me as your friendly backstage meeting host this evening.
She'll be
really important.
Yeah. She'll be working hard to keep all of your questions organized, which, by the way, if you guys have any questions throughout the meeting, feel free to type those up in the chat box, and we'll try to get to those as quickly and cover as many as we can. Again, thank you guys for coming. We're going to dive right in here. I've got a few questions, but a very general question, and we'll go around. My very first question is, when you think of the phrase Black joy, what does that mean to you? We'll start with Ms. Pierson.
Hey, so as I think of Black joy, several things came to mind. And just a little backdrop, I actually written a portion of an article that will be soon to be released on Black joy. And from my own reflections in height of the unrest in America and the protests that have been going on is laughter. So when I think about Black joy, laughter seems very paradoxical, but nonetheless, it can be used as a form of self-care. So I kind of bridged that gap between why it looks paradoxical based on biblical principles and why laughter is used such as medicine for the soul. It releases endorphins to make one happy. Not that we're laughing at the situation, but laughing that we're not defeated. We're laughing because we survived. We're laughing because God laughed. We laugh because we made it. So I go into kind of a rundown on that. So laughter definitely works for me. It may not be for everyone, of course, it's relative, but nonetheless, I do find that laughter definitely lift my soul and help my mood. Basically, I'm always laughing from the time I was a young kid all the way to now. I'm known for my laugh. Everywhere I go, Ashlee's here, because we hear her laughter and I'm loud. Like you can hear me 2 blocks down. But nonetheless, I know my laughter is infectious. And when anyone laughs, it causes another to laugh. So definitely, I do believe that's a part to help, heal the community just with laughter.
Of course. Thank you so much. What about you, Ms. Day?
For me, Black joy has to be silence and solitude. I think that we are pushed into the middle of everything all the time. We become the spokespeople. We become, especially for those of us who are activists or are involved in areas that we don't find a lot of people of color. We are on all the time. Someone always turning to us to tell them something. And so for me, what I love to hear about is what people are doing when they are by themselves in the quiet. So for me, joy means quiet.
That's beautiful. It's actually sort of kind of the same. I feel the same way in a sense. For me, Black joy is is really just kind of expressing the realest version of yourself, doing things that make your heart happy. For me in particular, I'm a dancer. I love to dance. I've been dancing since I was in the womb, out of the womb, kicking fuertes, turns. No hits once, but I hurt myself, so I won't do it again until I'm full of stress. We'll get there. But yeah, Black joy for me is to dance. It's to sing. It is to do the things that bring joy to my heart, things that put a smile on my face. That's what Black joy means to me. And so I feel like that can be anything for anyone. And that you just kind of have to do that soul searching and kind of figure what that is for you, but that's what it means for me. What about you, Mr. Ezedike?
So for me, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Black joy is resilience. I think often about the tremendous amount of things that our community goes through consistently and that we have gone through for years, decades, centuries, and throughout all of the pain and trauma that we face, we always find a way to still be resilient and to bounce back and push forward and to go further and to go higher, so resilience is definitely the word that comes to mind for me.
Absolutely. And you certainly have been very resilient. You've got a lot of things happening right now. And it took you quite a minute to get to where you are.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. First of all, let's start with your name, Ezedike. What does that mean?
Okay. Yeah, so Ezedike is actually a Nigerian word from the Igbo tribe, and it means mighty king. It's a word and a title they give to their sovereign, and originally my stage name was something completely different, but around, I think, late 2017, I had watched this incredible film named Daughters of the Dust. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's an incredible film about it's like African-American families shortly after slavery living off the mainland of America. And it just really inspired me to sort of like go deeper into my roots. And so I wanted something that was more reflective of my position in the diaspora. So I chose Ezedike. It's a word that means a lot to me, and yeah, essentially that's it.
Yeah. You expressed to me at one point that you were Nigerian. How did you find that out?
So around the same time, actually, I ended up getting my DNA tested, just because I was really curious to see, where I came from. And there are a lot of opinions about, doing that, but it was something that I decided to do for myself. And the interesting thing about the diaspora is that many Black people, I would say, probably come from like multiple places just because of, slavery and stuff like that. But the biggest place for me was Nigeria. And finding that out, I just felt sort of like I had reclaimed a part of myself. and I felt really proud of that. I mean, so I decided to, you know, do some research, and that's also how I stumbled upon the name. And yeah.
Awesome. So do you feel like that's kind of, it's almost in a way, I don't want to say use the word completing you, but I guess adding to how you see yourself, to claim that part of yourself?
Definitely. Just adding to the overall perception, you know, of like my Blackness and what that means to me, and, you know, what it means to be African American, and, you know, so.
Are we to expect some of that in your future work?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
I'm looking forward to it.
Because, you know, I have a intersectional identity of being queer and Black. I feel like those two things especially just always come through within my work, just because it's being made through that lens, if that makes sense. So definitely expect more of that.
Of course. Well, this song that you wrote was jumping. It was live and it was so much fun. It really captured what it means to have joy, and not just joy, but Black joy. I don't know if anybody has seen the video or heard the song That Old Black Magic by Ezedike, but it's the bomb. Like, I love that song. The first time I heard it, I was like, and it was like 12 o'clock in the morning, and I was up dancing. Like, I called him back immediately and was like, okay, I don't know who you think you are, but you got it. It's kind of got a sort of a disco type of vibe. Is there any particular reason why you went that direction, or?
Yeah, so in making the song, in making all of my art and all of my music, a phrase that often comes into my mind is "do nothing without intention."
Yeah.
So I wanted to be really specific about like the sounds that I chose.
Yeah.
And disco and funk music in general are both things that have been pioneered by Black artists. So I very much wanted to sort of speak to that through the song. And so not just with the lyrics, but like sonically as well. And even at the beginning of the song, there are sort of like phrases by queer icons in the queer Black community. And that was sort of like a tribute to like ballroom culture. And, you know, Madonna's voice is even heard saying, you know, "What are you looking at?" which is like the opening phrase to the song Vogue. So like all of that was supposed to be various call outs and homages and like tributes to Black culture and Black queer culture. So.
So when I first like came out with this list, anybody who's a part of this project, including Ezedike and also Miss Bryant and Cara, I sent out this really long list of about 12 to 13 different topics, and Ezedike was one of the first ones to get back to me and respond, and he was like, "Black joy," right away. Like, and I was like, "Huh? Okay." Why did you feel so passionately and like jump on that right away?
I don't know. It was just something that really, really spoke to me, and something that I felt I could contribute my some like really quality art to.
Yeah.
And as I said, it really just spoke to me. So I decided to go ahead and, you know, put my best foot forward. And funnily enough, the song had actually been created well before you had even asked me to be a part of the project. And even when I chose that originally, I had no idea what I was going to do. But then I was like, well, this is like the perfect contribution. So it just really came together in a really cool way. And I figured that it'd be the best way that I could contribute my art, you know. So yeah. I'm very proud to be a part of it, and I'm very proud of what we made. And it's crazy because anyone who was a part of what we did knows how chaotic that weekend was.
It was a crazy weekend.
And it was a very trying time. But as I said, I'm very proud of the work that we created together and what we're continuing to do with this project. So.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree. It was a really, really fun song. It was a stressful process, but anything that is worth doing will require sacrifice in one capacity or another. I'm a firm believer in that. How do you think this song best represents that particular category of self-joy and self-love? Black joy and self-love.
Well, from a lyrical standpoint, I just wanted to think of, you know, as many things as I could say as possible to like uplift people, if that makes sense. You know, even down to like certain things that are generally perceived as like negative, like the one drop rule. And I wanted to like flip that in a way and make it like a positive sort of thing. So like the opening line of the song is like, one drop was all I needed to be a little conceited. Blessed DNA, that's what they say, you know, so stuff like that. And then from a sonic standpoint, it's just like super catchy, you know. I wanted to make something that would get stuck in people's heads. And, you know, maybe you're just going about your business today and all of a sudden you're thinking, you know, I got that old, like, you know, humming it to yourself or singing it to yourself. And, you know, and then even just from like instrumental standpoint, it's very vibrant, very bright, you know, down to like the chord, you know, changes that I've made. So.
Yeah. It was absolutely a stunning song. Again, I say I loved it. I still love it. And I'm gonna share that video to the gods.
I'm really happy that it's resonated with people. That's another.
I feel like a lot of people are talking about it, and anyone who's heard it, when I speak to them, I find them humming it every now and again. Just a couple people that I've talked to, and I'm like, "Are you humming it just because I'm on?" I was like, "No, I actually really enjoy it, and I can't get it out of my head." So. You did good work, sir. You did really good work. So you've got some interesting things coming up, or that you're working on that's actually released now that people know about. Can we talk about some of that?
Yes, definitely. So the first thing that I really started, because my company's mission statement is to elevate those marginalized through humanitarian pursuits and ambitious, compelling art. So, you know, we released the art and I thought to myself, what sort of a humanitarian thing can I do behind this? You know, something really purposeful. So I chose these two wonderful organizations named the Okra Project and Black Trans Femmes in the Arts to support. And I created a raffle actually that anybody can participate in by just donating a certain amount. And then basically, you know, showing us how much you donated and telling us like your name so you can be entered into the raffle and you can win, you know, various different prizes. So, yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else coming up that we should know about?
There is potentially something dropping very soon.
Okay. So be on the lookout.
Yeah. me and my assistant are working on some merch stuff for the song and just in general. And then I plan to have some sort of project drop before the year's over. So
awesome. Where can we find any updated information for anything to come out? Facebook, Instagram, website?
All three of those actually. So Facebook at the Ezedike Company, Twitter and Instagram at Ezedike_co, and then YouTube at the Ezedike channel. As of right now, we don't have a website, but one should be coming within the next couple months.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ezedike. I'm really, really excited I'm looking forward to all of your upcoming work. And I'm really excited that I was able to be a part of the debut of your company and your first song release. Yes. It is a really awesome song, yet again, I say. And I'm super looking forward to, all the stuff to come from you. So, anywho. We're going to shoot over to Miss Pierson. So, one of the things that is really, really exciting to me about this particular talkback, it is talking about, we're talking about Black joy and self-love and self-care and what it means to love yourself enough to care for yourself. And so I really wanted to bring in a couple of people that could give us a little bit of knowledge on what it means to take care of your mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. And so Ms. Pierson she's chiming in today. And so I have a couple of questions for her. So my first question is actually, you'll hear Black people kind of talk about it briefly, but a lot of people don't want to really touch it because it's kind of taboo. Nobody really wants to talk about mental health in the Black community. It's kind of something that's sort of frowned upon or oftentimes rejected to get help and to ask for help. Can you give us any idea as to why that may be?
Absolutely. Of course, it's going to take more than this session to kind of grasp the idea, but I can definitely kind of generalize it and just explain that mostly when we think about historically, institutionalized racism and systemic racism is the foundation, of course, for the stigma around mental health in the Black community. And of course, it leads to healthcare disparities, and there's not much access to mental health in the Black communities, even thinking about decades ago. And now we're starting to see the change come, but nonetheless, what still exists is the fear ignorance and silence and shame. So those key components is what prevent people from seeking help, because of course with the negative stigma around mental health, it's like you're crazy. So those labels that comes out also is demonized. Some people see it as, oh, you have possessed demons, versus then really actual issues with brain chemistry that causes mental health. And then we also see the shame that comes around it, being made fun of, being isolated, being talked about. So this what causes one to not open up about their mental health to the community or to family members or friends, and not seek treatment. The other reason that I have noticed, not just in the communities here in New York and other places I live, but also even in research backs it up, that there's a lack of Black representation as far as clinicians. So you're not going to see a Black person go want to talk to a non-Black person, like a white therapist or Asian therapist, because that lack of understanding and cultural competence is not there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is it. I mean,
It's much more, but that's just the straight of it.
That's a nice little compact bit of information that really kind of sums up a lot of stuff, or at least segues into a lot of stuff. And it'll be easy to do research with a little bit of more knowledge. What are some things that we, as the Black community, could stand to benefit from getting mental health help?
Absolutely. So several things come to mind. One is clarity into one's trauma, and even actually identifying it as trauma, because some people don't know they have been traumatized and experienced trauma.
Yes.
And that leads to, substance use, all kinds of unhealthy behaviors and things as such. So getting that clarity into one's trauma. The other thing is actually gaining some skills and even coping strategies and how to deal with the day-to-day life, or even some other problems that one may be experiencing, like how can I deal with this? Maybe I need to go for a walk. Maybe I need to journal. Maybe I need to reach out to my support network. So gaining those coping strategies and skills is one thing that the Black community can actually benefit from. The other thing is being able to go into a session and being able to vent without bias. And a lot of times that doesn't happen with talking to a friend or a family member. Is always they're listening to you to give you a response versus them just being listened to. So going to a therapist or any mental health clinician, be able to vent without that bias or judgment and feeling shamed after spilling out the deep, dirty, dark, and ugly things is one. And that is actually falls into having that support. Your therapist and counselor could be a support system to you. And then also, I think the last two things I'm going to say is something that a lot of people don't see as a benefit, but one is the representation in clinical trials. And based on my research, there's not much Black representation in clinical trials as far as from the patient as well as actually the provider. So that can be a benefit. So a lot of, for example, we know a lot of Black young kids, especially Black young boys, are diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
Half the time, or more than half of the time, it is not actually that diagnosis, and because there's a lack of representation of us being in the clinical trials, they can label it as anything. And so we see that happening a lot. And so if we have more of us, then we have a better view, a better grasp on what's really taking place. And a lot of it is racial trauma, to be exact. Like I said, everything goes right back to systemic and institutionalized racism I mentioned in the first segment. And then the last thing I want to tap on, because I don't want to keep talking about, is treatment. Treatment equals healing. And it's a healing journey. So that is definitely the benefit that we can all get from seeking mental health help. Seeking treatment. And treatment doesn't only mean just going to therapy. It could be medication management. It can either be neither of the two, but just like I said, working on those coping strategies, using your support system or whatnot. And that helps with healing. So whatever part of us that have been kind of damaged or scarred over the years, or even current crisis moment, we can work to heal when we seek out mental health help.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed some of the things that you were saying about coping strategies. I think it really kind of
Healthy ones.
yeah, healthy coping strategies. Because I mean, I find that once you kind of get to the root of an issue, you'll start to see how that root has affected other parts of your life and areas of your life as well. So it becomes a little easier to start to navigate and unpack other parts of your life that you didn't really know were issues until this one thing started, you know, or started getting help with this one thing. So
Absolutely.
that's really cool. Thank you so much. All right. So shooting over to Miss Day, talking about spiritualism, how do you think our spiritual journey, how important do you think our spiritual journey as it relates to self-care?
That is a question that psychology is just beginning to take a look at. Psychology just as in 10, maybe 15 years ago, a section in the American Psychological Association that is the psychology of religion.
Yeah.
The problem with it is that all of the problems that exist with the diagnostic manual, with the way treatment is set up, with how research is done, exists in the APA section on religion. Part of why religion is so much left out is psychology leaves out anything that can't be parceled into neat little categories. And that's all about, speaking of history, that's all about wanting to be seen as a science and not as something squishy. And so psychology's methodologies has tried over the decades and generations to be able to be comparable to the hard sciences, to be able to say, just like the hard sciences can say, this is iron and this over here is copper, psychology wants to be able to say, this is a disorder like depression and this over here is a disorder like schizophrenia, and not have there be any gray area, but there is.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason psychology doesn't do spirituality or religion is that it is seen as something for the philosophers, leaving behind or leaving out the fact that early psychologists were philosophers. They were clerics. The original Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which was called the Malleus Maleficarum, was written by priests because of that notion that mental illness, and we still hear it in our communities now, mental illness was about being possessed by the devil or being possessed by a demon, and that's how it was treated. It was treated by giving people things that would cause them to vomit and purge, by drilling holes and trephining was an accepted treatment, drilling holes in someone's skull to release the evil spirits. That's something that was a part of psychology. Well, we have very similar things now. We call them pharmaceuticals now, okay? But it is the same notion that whatever is going on can be physically identified. And to a degree, that's true. There are some disorders and some challenges that people face that are about our endocrine system or neurotransmitters or how the brain is processing information.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's true. But the other part of what's happening for people has to do with how they're relating to themselves, to people around them, to creation or the universe. And so spirituality is very much a part of how people experience their problems in living as well as the joyful times. Psychology is not as equipped to do that. If you wanted to be a pastoral psychologist, you had to go to a different place than I went to get my PhD, where nobody talked to me about spirituality. But all of the folks that I've worked with in that time, since that time, as a community psychologist, I work directly in neighborhoods and directly with organizations and talking with people where they're at rather than waiting for people to come to my office. And one of the things you see immediately by looking at people's environments or listening to their conversation is that spirituality matters to people. So my experience, my professional experience with us working with folks in terms of religion and spirituality has begun to look at all the, I teach a course at Indiana University called Spirituality and Social Justice. And we go from the dawn of time around the world to look at how different belief traditions have had an impact on how society is developed and what political and economic issues are at stake, and as well as learning about the basic tenets of each of these belief traditions, so that we can then think about how is a person motivated to do their life the way they do, based on their belief tradition, and circumscribed by systemic issues of oppression like racism and gender exploitation and homophobia, so that we understand how that is all interacting, so that as I'm teaching the next generation of psychologists, we can begin to infuse those types of questions, because that's the real world. It has always been the real world. Psychology is just managed up until now to continue to screw up people's lives because they leave that out. You are muted.
Sorry, thank you.
But it was good. I mean, you had all that going on.
Yeah, talking with all of my whole body.
It was a full body experience.
So you used the term religion and spirituality before. These words are often kind of used to kind of mean the same thing. Mm-hmm. How are they different? They are different. They are different in terms of religion. In fact, there are books written about what is a religion and what are its structures. And religion, therefore, is thought of as something that does indeed have a structure. For many generations, in selecting a book for this course, I had to find a book that recognized that indigenous belief traditions, mysticism, ancestor worship, the belief traditions from Nigeria before slavery and before colonization, these were not considered religion. They were considered folk ways or something more demeaning. But religion we think of, or academics think of, as a structure. Spirituality are individual decisions people may make related to how they think of themselves within the creation or the cosmos. Okay.
How a person balances spirituality and religion, we can see in people like the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, the nuns. They will say, I have no religious affiliation, but I'm very spiritual. So I believe that I live by a code. I believe that there's a way I should be relating to the world. I believe that there are certain ethics I should follow, but I don't go to anybody's church. So a religion is we can think of in shorthand as a structure, and spirituality as a practice.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So can turning to religion or spirituality be a good way to deal with like psychological distress, especially if a person doesn't want to seek professional help?
All of our research in psychology tells us that we as the professionals are the end of the line. People have talked to everybody else. They've talked to their teachers. They've talked to people on the street. They talk to us as professors. They talk to everybody before they get to a psychologist, because of all the stigma that you were talking about earlier, because of expense, because of the shaming that will happen if someone finds out about it. And so one of the first things that people will turn to is their belief tradition. Mm-hmm. And depending upon how that tradition is manifested, they may find comfort and they may not. And so as the professional on the scene, the question that I always have to ask is, what happens when you turn to the people who are in your belief tradition? Because sometimes that's part of the problem, the reaction that people get because of the way that tradition is manifest in these particular individuals. And so it's a multi-layered question whether spirituality and religion can be a coping strategy that has to be examined based on whether it is indeed the source of the rage or the shaming or the dispossession that's going on. In that case, no, it is not a good strategy. but helping people find another way to express that need, because we need to be connected. We need to feel a sense of being part of something bigger. We need that.
Yeah.
But we don't always get that in any productive way from places of belief or worship. And so asking for those individuals who are having difficulty, where part of the difficulty is coming from their source of their tradition, asking, how do you get that same thing you feel you need from another source or another practice? That in that sense, belief and spirituality can be a way of coping.
Yes. If so, we, in the Black community, we experience a lot of people very broadly, as the rest of the world does as well, but we have people who are Black and atheist, people who are Black and Christian, people who don't like to go to see professionals, people who don't like the idea of being around religion in any capacity or another. Are there any other ways that we might be able to access? And I'll open the floor up if Ashlee, you would like to respond as well. Are there any other coping mechanisms that people might be able to incorporate to kind of get help, if you will, or begin to de-stress or decompress and kind of bring some of that stability to their mental health in their everyday lives?
Absolutely. I think at this point, that's what a lot of people are really trying to figure out, how to incorporate it, where it's non-threatening and it's non-traditional settings, whereby hosting forums and talking about mental health. We also see, mental health first aid training, which is free, that is being hosted in churches, it's hosted in community-based organizations, it's hosted, amongst a small group. So it's just kind of first starting off bringing about awareness. What is mental health? What is mental illness? Because it is a difference. Everybody equate mental health with mental illness, but that's not the case. And then kind of what I've been seeing mostly, of course, is the church have been very resistant forever about it, because I'm kind of one of the pioneers that try to incorporate mental health discussions and throughout sermons, throughout Bible study, throughout Sunday school lessons, throughout that, starting from just the generation. That's what I'm actually working on with my doctorate, is, trying to incorporate this language about, let's talk about mental health, starting from the smallest generations all the way to the higher generations. So one, that can destigmatize the issues around mental health, so it will no longer be taboo. We no longer will present the opportunities for shame, silence, and stigma. So I think, number one, having that conversation and kind of creating those opportunities to discuss what is it, bringing about awareness. And then I think the second component is training. So I do see on a very small scale, and of course I'm talking from East Coast, but on a very small scale, that people are now kind of having smaller trainings around how to identify symptoms, how to identify if someone's suicidal, what to do in the case if that happens. And I think we got to keep that momentum going. The moment we keep that momentum going, and particularly in the Black community, we will start seeing change. But of course, it's going to take time, and it's definitely going to take diligence and effort. But it's going to take that because of what has been in place for hundreds of years, so it's not going to be an overnight process nonetheless. But I'm glad that there are people like yourself who's hosting a forum like this, so we'd be able to discuss it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could add, there's, in terms of looking at strategies that are perhaps that don't necessarily involve the professionals, we can draw upon some of those practices that have been a part of communities of color since the dawn of humanity. We're looking, for example, that one person, because we all know who that person is. That might be the woman who lives in the house on the corner. It might be the mechanic. It might be the barber. It might be your stylist. These are people that people are already comfortable talking with, and that they're more likely to talk with, and so a way of being able to make discussions about mental health, take them out of the shadows, is to to recognize that mental health services are being provided by these people, and that they are legitimate sources for that, and giving that voice, as well as assisting these folks to feel more equipped if they feel they would like to. A dream of mine would be to have all barbers and stylists in a class, so that we can talk about the things that you should be listening for and be aware of, and know that you are the first line of defense when people are in your chair, because that's where mental health services are happening there. And practices, some of those practices from ago in our communities were also the community circles. We used to sit around in a circle and prepare food or process linens or do something. And in that circle, we all came to know each other and trust one another, and a lot of work got done there. We live in a different way now, but we can still create those circles and have that be recognize that is a place where mental health issues can be addressed and embraced, so that folks don't feel as if they are talking to strangers, because that's one of the big issues. My students will talk to me because I'm the professor, and I'm far enough away from everything that really, all the other people who really matter, and I'm all right with that. I'm far away from those other people who really matter, but I know stuff. So people come in, and I can tell by their demeanor when they walk in whether this needs to be a closed door conversation or not. And that's very much a part of what I accept as my work. Realizing that these people that we don't think of as mental health professionals are, and giving voice to that and allowing that to be considered as we are now beginning these conversations about mental health in our communities. And draw from the old world. Yoga, yes, yoga we associate with coming from the East, but people were doing things to bend their bodies and be sure they were healthy, and all over the world, on the African continent as well. And so these are practices that we can bring forward and use them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Bryant, for kind of expounding on what I was talking about with like training and doing the non-traditional with training the actual people in the community. So thank you for bringing sites. I'm highlighting that because I was actually ran across an article not too long ago that actually speaks on what you was talking about. They said, the barber and the beautician, it's kind of like they hearing people's stories day in and day out, and people trust them. And so, and because that trust is there, they can be the first point of contact to kind of linking someone to get mental health treatment. Not that they're being the professional, right, but they actually have weight. They have that contact with them. Yep. Yes.
Stylist before me in a moment, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. To show her stylist and not me, and I'm good with that. Let's recognize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think. Yeah, and I think it's because it's the Black community, we have to do things in a very innovative, non-traditional way, really.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I really enjoy, to both your points, you kind of repeated it a lot, but it's just really one of my favorite things to hear in that saying that we are also each other's support, generally speaking. And so it's really cool to hear you say that, we should also start to get that training and start to look into different avenues to be able to help our fellow man. Because I don't know, I'm very much a person of connection and synergy. Mm-hmm. And so I really believe in the power of a knit community being able to, the idea that a village can raise a child kind of situation, not saying that every person is a child, but we can also stand to benefit from just being there for one another in whatever capacity that we can. So I'm actually going to open the floor up to our audience. If you guys have any questions that you may want to ask Ezedike, Dr. Bryant, or Ms. Pierson, go ahead and type those out in our chat. And then Cara, our handy behind the scenes person, will go ahead and read those out, and we'll get them answered for you.
While we wait for that, I just wanted to thank you two again, Ashlee and Dr. Bryant, for being a part of this. I love just listening to you two, speak, and you have so many great knowledge points that I think are very great to hear. So yeah, just thank you for being a part of it, and thank you, Dr. Bryant, as well for being in the video. By the way,
Welcome.
I have to go see the video. I did love it. I loved the music. The music was awesome.
It was a very fun. I had a lot of fun on the days where it was just a couple of people. Throughout the day, Day and I got to do a single day where it was just her and I, and we got to test out my drone some more.
Oh,
Really
such a cool toy.
Yeah.
Very cool toy.
Really enjoyed it. Cara, are we getting any questions?
I think I see one to myself.
Okay, for Ezedike, you mentioned featuring queer icons in your song. Is Black queerness a central theme in all of your music/work? How does this theme tie in for you to mental health?
Yeah. So I definitely think it is central in all of my work. As I sort of stated before, just because my identity is intersectional in that way, it's automatically being made through that lens. And then just furthermore, I think that often when it comes to art, I don't nearly, and I think a lot of other people could agree with me on this, we don't nearly see enough representation from that community. A lot of art of like queer Black people is very sort of like boxed in a sort of way, or people just aren't really interested in it. So I think making spaces for like representation is super important. And I seek to do that with literally everything that I create in whatever way that I can. And then the way I'd say that sort of ties into mental health for me is just, being able to feel visible, and feel represented is a big thing for myself and for a lot of other people in the community. And I think that there is, work being done through art, essentially,
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Grace, for your question. I don't have a question, but this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you, from Danny Lyons. I don't have a question, but this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Danny, for chiming in. You're the bomb, as well as Grace and Caleb and Connor. You all are great. So I kind of want to open the floor up if no one has any more questions. If you do, please feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll absolutely ask them. But I want to open the floor up to all of our featured artists and guests. Ezedike, we talked to you. Can you tell that he's on this side of my screen?
Yes.
Ezedike, we talked to you briefly about some of the projects that you've got coming up. A little bit, Miss Pierson, you said that you've got a couple things coming out. Can you give us a little bit of light on that again, where to find those things potentially?
Yes, so there's an article on Black Joy being released by the Mennonite Mission Network out of Elkhart, Indiana, and that will be released, I believe, in about 4 to 5 weeks on the topic Black Joy in light of the unrest in America by, Black women voices who were featured in this particular article, which I'm excited about. And that will be, like I said, I don't know the actual date, but about 4 to 5 weeks, and I could definitely post it to the Facebook page for people to follow on that. I also am working on and hope to finish my 3rd book, which will be kind of towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, and that is on, it's called R codes, which is meaning to do over, so kind of replenish, recovery, everything. And this is particularly written for leaders, and it can be ministry leaders, it can be leaders and organizations, and especially in light of COVID and how to kind of regain ourselves and recover. So it's talking about a whole bunch of reads. So it's definitely scriptural based as everything I do. So look out for that. And then, I don't have any particular events coming up, but you guys can follow me at Ashlee P on Facebook page for all of what I do. And another Facebook page is Embracing Life Daily, the Black community on Facebook page as well, where I advocate, post particular tips, different topics. I host and feature various clinicians across the US on that page as well. And we talk anything mental health, from adults to children. That's mental health and sex, mental health and drugs, mental health, anything. So we talk everything mental health, and it's particularly for the Black community. Again, once again, to kind of destigmatize that. And then you can also follow me on Instagram for at Church Therapist for events and kind of some of the seminars and conferences that I do. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'd like to feature, and we'll talk a little bit privately as well, but I'd like to feature as much of that as I can on the Black Voice page as well. So we'll get we'll chat and get all the details.
Okay.
Ms. Bryant, Dr. Day Bryant, can you let us know what you got coming up?
I can. As I said when we started out, I've been working with Black Lives Matter here in South Bend. And because of our connection in South Bend with the larger Black Lives Matter global network, they requested that I create a curriculum to look at burnout, or to address burnout among activists. And that curriculum has now been developed. It is a series of podcasts. I sent and I can resend a visual to Pierre so that you folks can see it.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go ahead and post that in the chat, so you'll be seeing that relatively soon.
Okay. The objective is for us to open the conversation about mental health within communities of color, and also mental health among activists. The activism, social justice culture is such a martyrdom culture that we burn out our activists, and we call it a badge of honor that we use them up. So the expectation is that you and your relationships and your finances are all, if they're all in disaster, then that shows that you were really down for the cause, which is just counterproductive, to say the least.
Definitely.
So beginning to look at how we can understand what burnout is, and therefore what can we do in terms of prevention, and in terms of keeping it from becoming absolutely debilitating. So for five podcasts every 2 weeks, one every 2 weeks, we'll be talking about different aspects of what it means to be a human being. And what does it mean to be a human being of color here in our country? I've had to focus on the US because that's what I could speak to most clearly. But I say regularly for people to extrapolate to what their own circumstance might be, because we are working through the global network. And I anticipate that some of the people who'll be participating will not be from the United States. And the vehicle that we're using is the arts, which is how I got to Pierre, and how I got to many of the other folks who are part of our work. There's a section of the podcast where people who are attendees can have the opportunity to upload their own artistic work. The piece that I've put together as the main content part of the podcast looks at how art has been used across time, from the beginning of time, as a way of being able to cope and as a way of being able to communicate with one another and with our communities. And so I've selected artists, both well-known and obscure, to illustrate the points that I'll be making throughout my section. I then partner with Pam Blair, who is in charge of the creative part, a segment of the podcast, and she has organized an amazing roster of artists that we then will discuss with at each of the podcasts. And then we have a talk back part, so that people who have been there and may have insights or revelations, we can have the space to do that. I've designed it so that it is as interactive as it can possibly be. One of the things that I hate having to do myself is to go to a podcast and listen to somebody talk at me for 45 minutes. No matter how much I enjoy the topic, my brain starts to wander. So keeping that in mind, it's a lively podcast. We've run the rehearsal to be sure that we have all the timing down right. We're tweaking things enough so that we can take care of the major stuff and just have to deal with the little stuff that's going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really, really excited about it. As I said, it's totally virtual, so people can log in from wherever they might be, and establishing the gallery of creations by people, I'm especially looking forward to. And then we'll have the big virtual reception in November, on the 18th of November, to show off those pieces that people will have submitted, and we can showcase them as well.
That is very exciting.
Yes,
I'm actually really looking forward to that.
We're very excited. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. All these things are so wonderful. I'm really excited and glad to call you guys. I would consider my friends. You're wonderful, intelligent, beautiful, and I thank you all so much for being a part of the Black Voice and what this project means to the community. And I'm glad that the Black Voice can be a part of each and everything that you guys have all got going on as well. That is all that I have. And again, thank you guys so much. I do want to ask one question for everyone, and it'll just kind of be a brief little one-word sitch. What is the thing that you do in life that brings you the most amount of joy?
Wow.
DK.
For me now, it'd probably be my work with my company. I just feel super fulfilled to be able to create the work that I have created and am creating, and to just continue to do my part in, uplifting our community, whether that be Black people as a whole, Black men, Black women, queer Black people, trans Black people, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Absolutely. Dr. Dave Bryant.
I derive great joy from challenging the bureaucracies, dragging them in directions that they had never thought of, doing kicking and screaming if that's what it takes, but one step at a time, changing bureaucracies. That just makes me smile.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What are you, Miss Pierson?
Man, I can list several, but I do believe singing and dancing is the top of my list. Like you stated, Pierre, I was born and dancing and singing and in the womb doing the same thing, come out still doing the same thing. But yeah, that would bring me much, much, much joy. If I can just sing to the top of my lungs in a house, or sing in front of an audience, dance in front of the audience. I don't professionally dance anymore, so that's the disclaimer. Yeah, but I still enjoy dancing. All different kinds of dancing. But yes, so those are my top two.
Yes, come on, professional dancer. I love it.
Right.
Carl, we're not leaving you out, sister. Come on in and tell us.
First of all, I'm just now realizing I had my mic muted when I was supposed to be reading questions, so no wonder. I was like, why are you reading at the same time? I'm technologically adaptable. But anyhow, to the question, I would have to say music in the form of singing on my end, sort of dancing. I'm not I'll leave that to you, best friend. That's, but I can do a little two-step or something. That's all right. But probably my first love, music was one of my first loves, but probably writing. And I'm getting back into that a lot more, and going to be quite busy with that in a little bit, but it's the thing that I love and most look forward to. So I would have to say that. Oh, and relationships with other family, friends, just being with the people I love, that brings me.
Yes. Yeah, I would probably say that for me, everybody who knows me knows that I love to sing and dance and act on occasion. But the biggest thing for me, I would probably say, is the gift of camaraderie. Just being around people that I love, being around people that make me laugh and challenge my brain to do new and exciting things. And I don't know, they all of my friends and all of my family always give me life. And so um, I always recommend and encourage people to be around people who are life-giving to you. That's the biggest thing that I can probably contribute, even as we talked about mental health, is be around people who are life-giving to you. Yes. Wow, thank you guys so much again. This was really wonderful. It really did my heart good and my brain good. I got all my notes. And whatever I forgot, I can go back and watch the video that we recorded the whole time.
You can go
Thank
back
you
and
guys
watch the
again.
video.
I will be posting this video to YouTube and the Black Voice website. And those links will also be posted to the Black Voice Facebook page and the Black Voice Instagram. So everyone should be able to have access to these things within the next couple days here. All of the videos I also strip down and take the video out and just use the sound and create just a vocal track, and we'll release a podcast as well for all of these. So everyone will have access to all the things just to listen to it in your car on the way to work or for a long trip that you feel like you just need a little mental stimulation. We got you. So as always, I love everyone listening far and wide. Love, peace, and hair grease. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Adios.
Stick on them, stick on. You can stop recording.